Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is, and welcome back. I hope your rest was outstanding, and thank you for joining us a little smidge early on this lovely Friday. We made it through another busy week, and we got some serious business to attend to before we sail off into Father's Day Celebrationville. And we're starting off today with a little bit of Israel-Iran news. We're going to get some clarity from the president and from the Secretary of State on what is happening and parse through the news out and about and see what the latest is. We got some updates from C-SPAN. Trump had a bunch of posts on the interwebs. We got Lindsey Graham and a bunch of other things. Then we're going to turn our attention to what's happening in the courts because we had a big battle yesterday between Gavin Newsom and Trump, and the Court of Appeals came down and issued a stay order against the lower level judge. The whole situation, very embarrassing for Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom came out and he was saying crap like this. He said, tomorrow Trump will be relieved of duty and I'll have command at noon tomorrow. Not going to happen, Gavin. That one did not age well. So we'll come back on that. We'll see how embarrassing Gavin is. He just can't help himself. But the judge in the Ninth Circuit, the panel of the judges, rather, they came down and they stayed the lower level judge. This is the Bill Clinton judge who was in California and who said that Trump had to get the National Guard out of there. We covered the battle yesterday. We covered the hearing. And then at the end of the show, or actually later that evening, the judge came out with a new order. And the order raises some questions because we're wondering how this dude was able to write 36 pages of material in like 2 hours. Seems like the order was already written, courtesy of our friend Julie Kelly, assembled the timeline there for us. But we'll go through it. We'll see what Trump's appeal looks like, because this is only temporarily stayed, right? So Gavin Newsom ultimately might win on this, but as it stands, he got his booty stayed. And so he was getting a little bit overeager there. We'll see. So we'll go through some of the filings. We'll see what's still going on out there over in California. So this is what the judge is saying that they want more of, I guess, to vacate the National Guard from this premises. So we'll take a look at that. We'll hear from our friend Tim Burchett, who was lacing into Kathy Hochul over there in New York. We'll do a quick update on this case. This is an Obama judge, Denise J. Casper. She also came out with a new order today, which is going to be undoing Trump's executive order that would have mandated the checking of citizenship, documentary proof of citizenship requirements. Remember, Trump came in and said, we're going to fix our elections. This judge says, no, you're not. What, are you kidding me? You're going to check for citizenship here? No, because we need illegals to vote in our elections. And if you do that, we're going to continue to lose everything. So we'll go through that. We'll see what the latest is there. And then I want to run through this little clip here from Jamie Raskin, man. Shout out to Nick Sorter over on X, who got this confrontation with Jamie Raskin. Absolutely outstanding. He went up to Jamie Raskin and he was asking him questions. And look at Jamie. Hey, fascist! Jamie, relax, lunatic. All right, so we'll come back on that. And it's just a ton of fun because Jamie is having a tough time trying to figure out how to reconcile. Look at these pictures of this dude. Amazing. So all of that is coming up. We'll listen to that and kind of sail off into the Friday making fun of Jamie. So we'll come back on all of that, my friends. It is a beautiful day. I have to clean up my fascist spittle. Starting to sound like Keith Olbermann over here. Got to clean out those crevices of your spittle foam there, Keith and Jamie. So just amazing. We're going to come back on that. Jamie's having a rough day out there. And he also, you'll see this, he's also doing, hey, look, I'm super cool walk today. Check this out. He posted this. Look at this. Look at Jamie. He posted this. And the video, it's a 4-second video. So it's literally a video of him walking. And it's a 4-second video. And he says, I'm walking down to Thune's office to demand that he protect our lunatic senators. So anyways, we'll come back on all of that. It's going to be a beautiful stream. We are happy that you're here and with us, my friends. Thanks for subscribing to our channel if you haven't already done so. We normally go live at 3 p.m. Arizona time, 6 p.m. Eastern time. We're a little early today because we're heading down to celebrate Father's Day with the families. Get all the fathers together and celebrate. So hopefully you're doing something amazing as well. I will miss you on the usual streams, but of course we'll be back on the regular schedule starting next week. So thanks for being here, and shout out to our membos. Thank you, amazing membos. Stick around after the show because we'll do an after party. We'll debrief and we'll see what is going on. But we appreciate you being here. Thanks for liking the video. Thanks for inviting everyone you've ever known or met or loved or talked to in your whole entire life, everybody in your phone book and your email list, to come and join the show. All right, now let's talk about the business on the day, because we're getting some clarity from the government. Trump and Rubio now explaining the U.S.'s role in the Israel-Iran strikes. Several statements here, and the news is reporting a bunch of other things. Some people are saying Trump approved these things. And you're saying, well, that's a little bit like the president is involved in all of it. Or is it Trump knew about it? Or is it tacit approval? Is it explicit approval? All sorts of things. But as soon as the strikes went off yesterday, Rubio posted this. He says, tonight, Israel took unilateral action against Iran. We are not involved in strikes against Iran, and our top priority is protecting American forces in the region. Israel advised us that they believe this action was necessary for its self-defense. President Trump and the administration have taken all necessary steps to protect our forces and remain in close contact with our regional partners. Let me be clear. Iran should not target U.S. interests or personnel. Which sounds pretty American first, which I appreciate. So we're happy about that. Then Trump came out this morning and he said, I gave Iran chance after chance to make a deal. I told them in the strongest words to just do it. But no matter how hard they tried, no matter how close they got, they just couldn't get it done. I told them it would be much worse than anything they know, anticipated, or were told, that the United States makes the best and most lethal military equipment anywhere in the world by far, and that Israel has a lot of it, with much more to come. And they know how to use it. Certain Iranian hardliners spoke bravely, but they didn't know what was about to happen. They are all dead now, and it will only get worse. There has already been great death and destruction, but there is still time to make this slaughter, with the next already planned attacks being even more brutal, come to an end. Iran must make a deal before there is nothing left and save what was once known as the Iranian Empire. No more death, no more destruction. Iran, just do it before it is too late. God bless you all. So it sounds like the president is saying, man, Israel's about to unleash. I don't know what else is coming next, if the U.S. is going to be involved or anything like that. He's not intimating that. But Israel seemingly has been planning this for a long time. We're learning that they had a bunch of assets embedded in next to SAM sites and all sorts of things. And then it went off, right? So they've been working on this for quite some time. Trump also posted this. He said here, 2 months ago, I gave Iran a 60-day ultimatum to, quote, make a deal. They should have done it. Today is day 61. I told them what to do, but they just couldn't get there. Now they have, perhaps, a second chance. We'll see if any of that comes to fruition. Dana Bash got Trump's cell phone. I really need to get my hands on that number if anybody knows it. We also have her calling the president. She said, I just got off the phone with Trump this morning, and here's what he said.
Dana Bash, who I understand, Dana, just had a chance to speak with President Trump. What did he tell you?
Good morning, John. Yes, I mean, first question I had was about what his point of view is about the strike that Israel conducted, multiple strikes that Israel conducted last night. I know we were reporting real time that his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, released a statement simply saying that Israel informed the Trump administration about these strikes beforehand, but didn't say explicitly that the U.S. supported what Israel was doing. So that's how I started a very brief conversation. And he responded by saying, quote, "We, of course, support Israel, obviously, and supported it like nobody has ever supported it." And then he went on to say this: "Iran should have listened to me when I said, I gave them, I don't know if you know this, but I gave them a 60-day warning. And today is day 61.
So what he posted.
And then he said they, meaning Iran, should now come to the table to make a deal before it's too late. And then he said something really noteworthy. He said, "The people I was dealing with are dead, the hardliners." To which I just wanted to underscore. So what you're saying is Israel has now killed the people who you were dealing with. And he said very sarcastically, they didn't die of the flu. They didn't die of COVID. It was a brief conversation.
Well, that I don't know. I mean, you got to check the doctor death certificates because there's a lot of people who died of COVID. This guy's head's blown off his body. They're like, but was he infected? Did you swab his nose? He has no nose. His head is blown off. Oh, well, just count it. All right. Well, count it as a COVID death. We need to get that government money.
But my takeaway was twofold. Number one, they are really hoping that instead of escalating the situation, which is what most people, our terrific reporters and analysts you've been talking to all morning, believe is possible, even probable, he's hoping that instead of that, this forces Iran to come to the table. We'll see if that's going to happen. He also, he made clear he understands that it could escalate, but he is hoping now that Israel has done what it's done, that it takes another turn and de-escalates. We'll see.
It sounds like such an interesting conversation, though brief, and you hit on what seems to be emerging as one of the key questions here, especially based on what Secretary of State Marco Rubio said almost immediately after the attacks began, which was basically this was Israel acting unilaterally.
Yeah.
It's one thing if President Trump says this morning that he supports Israel. It's another if he signed off, as it were, on the attacks
What does this
yesterday.
even mean? What are they talking about?
Hard.
What is the difference between you knew about it, you supported it, or you signed off on it? It's like, what does that mean? I guess it's asking whether or not Benjamin Netanyahu was subjugating himself to Trump in a way. Like, are they asking if Benjamin was asking for permission to do it? And Trump said, yes, Benjamin, you can do it? Or is that what they're trying to get to the bottom of?
Hard to tell where that line is, Dan.
He definitely, I mean, it's such an important point, John. He definitely did not say, I signed off on this. He said, I support Israel. We support Israel. We support Israel like no one has ever done before. And, obviously, the whole sort of reason for this line of questioning, which you wouldn't normally ask of the Trump administration when it comes to the state of Israel, particularly that government,
see why they care so much.
Because of that statement that Marco Rubio put out, but also because of the really important nuance here, which is the immediate concern for retaliation by Iran, not just against Israel, but against U.S. assets in and around the region.
Got it.
And we didn't get deep into that conversation at all. We didn't have time, frankly. I didn't have time, but that is why I, really wanted to push him on the notion of support for Israel.
Okay, so I think she's trying to get to the point of, are we attacking also? Like, is this a cooperative operation? Did we execute a joint strike, or was this just an Israeli strike where the United States is supporting an ally against a declared adversary? And so they're kind of splitting hairs there on that, but I think Rubio was pretty clear about it, right? Our number one priority, they don't need Trump to undermine it. It feels like they're trying to drive a wedge between the two, trying to drive some conflict here. And saying Rubio's distancing himself pretty aggressively from this. Trump is saying, well, we still support them. So are we involved in this? I think Rubio's statement is pretty clear. No, we're not, right? We're supporting an ally has been a long-term relationship against a long-term foe. So we're supportive of them. They've got the right to defend themselves, but it's their business. It's their war. It's their prerogative. They can do what they want. And the United States will be focused on keeping our people safe. So we've got that. We also had Lindsey Graham getting castigated for this, rightfully so. He said, game on. Pray for Israel. Lindsey just been excited as hell since yesterday. He's like, he really wants the nukes to go off in Ukraine. And so he's waiting for this, like, perfect, another conflict. So interested in all of the other conflicts, like the border battle in Ukraine and between Russia and between Israel and Gaza and Israel and Iran and all the others, but not that interested in the Mexican reconquista of America that's now wholly endorsed by the president, Claudia Sheinbaum, and the president of the Senate down there in Mexico. All excited about it with Mexican flags waving around our streets. But he's saying, game on, pray for Israel, warmonger Lindsey, doing the warmonger Lindsey thing. We also saw that the strikes apparently were majorly effective. This guy was all over CNN yesterday. He's an analyst over there, global affairs correspondent for all over the place. And he was reporting for Axios and elsewhere that the commander of the Revolutionary Guard Corps over there, Hussein Salami, was killed in the strikes. Iranian state media is confirming this. And apparently a bunch of people just got decapitated, the entire operation, essentially, that would be responsible for responding to this has been both literally and figuratively decapitated. Now, interesting things also were spreading around X yesterday. You saw this one at 4:02 June 12th. Pentagon Pizza report on the internet, on the X, says that they can basically reverse engineer when there's activity at the Pentagon by just looking at pizza establishments. They said at about 7 p.m. Eastern time, nearly all pizza establishments nearby the Pentagon have experienced a huge surge of activity. Crap, we're going to be here for a while. What do you want? Pepperoni? Yeah. Sausage? Yeah. Just get the meat lovers. All right. Shove it on there. All right. So lots of activity yesterday. And this is always bizarre. Like we see these happen a lot. People start to go, what's going on here? Extreme Pizza. That's less busy. So people didn't want the Extreme Pizza. But over here, District Pizza Palace and Domino's, apparently a big fan for the Pentagon. Lots of fans over there. Now, the latest from CNN. Let's see. They give us some updates, and then we'll see where it goes from here. But the latest is what's happening now. Israel attacks Iran, got all that. Now, Iranian air defenses, as of 4 minutes ago, have been activated as fresh strikes hit Tehran, according to state media. New air defenses across Iran activated, fresh targets hitting Friday, local time. Press TV reported missiles were intercepted south of Tehran as the Islamic Republic of Iran is broadcasting that they're being hit by new strikes. CNN reaching out to the Israeli military for comment, not much there. Israel committed to ensuring there's no nuclear weapons program left, period, saying they will not have a path. They deployed reservists all across the country, and you can see a little map there. Iraq is urging Iran to continue talks. Iraq saying, can you guys talk this out? Please stop bombing each other. UN nuclear watchdog says radiation levels outside Iran's Natanz facility have not changed. So they blew up some of the nuclear facilities, and apparently there's not been any leaks or anything. Here's another map of what's going on over there. Iran is summoning the Swiss ambassador to warn the U.S. Okay, so here's what we're talking about. Now, Iran summoned the Swiss ambassador in Tehran to deliver a warning to the United States, accusing Washington of complicity. He says it's unthinkable that the Zionist regime's aggressive actions against Iran were carried out without cooperation, coordination, and at least a green light from the U.S. in this regard. Rubio said no. The U.S. must be held accountable for its illegal behavior. Try something, brother. The Iranian representative told, and by the way, they're probably going to. All right, so I saw this wild clip from Pompeo. Mike Pompeo was out today saying, get ready. The Iranians are going to take out America. So just get ready. Iran also warned against any U.S. support for Israel during Tehran's response, including by preventing Iran from exercising its right to a legitimate defense, right? And this is the risk, is that the U.S. gets ensnared into this foreign conflict because they attack us and we say, well, you can't attack us. So since you attacked us, then we got to attack you. I'm like, oh, great. That's exactly what Israel wanted and, what a lot of other people wanted. So Israel and a lot of like the neocons in America. So Israel's foreign minister says Iran's war against Israel began with 10/7 attacks and more. And Rubicon has been crossed. So all of that is happening now. But we're going to keep our eye on the administration and hope that they keep America outside of this millennial generational conflict and let them deal with it while we deal with our own borders and protect our own people and American interests at home while the rest of the world can solve this problem by themselves. All right, so we got that. That's a good update on Iran. Thanks for hanging with us and joining us on that one. But now let's turn our attention to Newsom, because this dude just keeps failing. Gavin Newsom can't help but continue to embarrass himself. He posted this video and then had to immediately eat his words. He said, after the court order that just came down, I am now in charge. The guard will be back under my command, said Gavin, and Donald Trump will be relieved of his command at noon tomorrow, aka today. Well, guess what, Gavin? Womp, you just lost, because the Northern District of California judge just got stayed by the Ninth Circuit. Womp, womp, womp. And so it's not going to be happening by noon today at all, Gavin, because you just got stopped. Now, here is what President Trump said about this as soon as the order came down. He said the appeals court ruled last night that I can use the National Guard to keep our cities, in this case Los Angeles, safe. If I didn't send the military into LA, that city would be burning to the ground right now. We saved LA. Thank you for the decision. And Newsy, he was over here. This is what he sounded like yesterday. So pathetic. Here is Gavin Newsom talking tough before having to eat his own words.
So I'm very hopeful this order puts that in perspective, and hopefully Donald Trump will immediately back down. The courts have ruled on the guard. They will be back under my command, and he'll be relieved. Donald Trump will be relieved of his command at noon tomorrow.
Wrong. Didn't happen. Not going to happen. He's got a lot more time than noon today, Gavin. Man, what a pathetic person. Why would you come out with so much bravado when you were going to get reversed immediately? So what happened was, and this was a wild situation, because remember, we were talking about this judge, the judge who ultimately issued the order. We'll take a quick look at the order. The order is about saying Trump did not have the power to use the National Guard and send them into California. And we'll read through the order briefly. But the judge is essentially saying that Gavin didn't get proper notice and that it's unlawful to use them for a rebellion. Or you can use it for a rebellion, but what's happening in California is not a rebellion, and just said that Trump was acting illegally, right? Now, this judge is the judge who was appointed originally by Bill Clinton, and his name is Charles Breyer. He's the brother of Stephen Breyer, former Supreme Court Justice. And the dude is like 83 years old, right? 83, born November 1941. And I listened to the oral arguments yesterday, and I thought, yeah, that dude sounds like he's 83. And was very slow and sounded like he already had come to a conclusion. And in hindsight, that seems to be accurate, because what happened was Julie Kelly did a nice summation of this for us, where Julie Kelly posted this right here. She said, less than 4 hours after holding a hearing, Judge Charles Breyer, 83-year-old Clinton appointee, issues a 36-page opinion. So this judge just goes back out there and he's like, typing the whole thing, got all these citations and everything in it just 4 hours later. And then he says Trump was acting illegally. This was written before the hearing, she says, no doubt, obviously. It is filled with political rhetoric intended to create headlines. And Julie says she's fine with the National Guard leaving LA. Just let them burn themselves to the ground, whatever. Don't need to fight over it all that much, which is one approach. And of course, she makes a good point that this judge issued this order, right? This full thing in 4 hours. He wrote, I don't know, do you use ChatGPT for this? Write me an opinion that's garbage in 4 hours. Ridiculous. I mean, all right, so we'll just take a quick look at it. But Trump responded to this, filed an emergency appeal, and we'll spend more time on that. This is the one that he's taking up to the Ninth Circuit, because this is where the ball is right now. We're on the Ninth Circuit yard line now. So here's what the judge said, just to give you a summation and close the loop from the prior show. But the judge issued the order saying Trump cannot use the National Guard. He said is essentially the court must determine whether Trump followed the Congress procedures, right? It's almost like, it's like due process for Gavin, essentially, is what this argument is, saying he did not. Trump did not follow the process in sending the National Guard in to clean up California. Now, his actions were illegal, both exceeding the scope of his authority and violating the 10th Amendment. And so he must therefore return control of the California National Guard back to the governor of California. Oh, gosh. So he's going to give us a big, long explanation. All of this was already written, I would imagine, or he just came in and made some minor adjustments. But he explains California's got a big National Guard. On June 6th, there were a bunch of protests. Some members of the public gathered in protests. Bunch of people came down, 800 protesters in 2 sites. On June 7th, both ICE operations and responsive protests continued, and it just kind of goes on and on. Then Trump came out and federalized the National Guard. Hegseth issued the memo. Of course, we know how that went. Then the order further stated that they're going to send in 2,000 National Guard members. Now, here's where the judge kind of flips out. Defendants did not notify Newsom of their intent to federalize the Guard prior to the January 7th memo. Trump says, well, I called the dude and I said, get your affairs in order, Gavin, or else we're going to come in and clean it up. Newsom only learned of this after they received it, right? Newsom, I didn't know you were going to do this. You didn't call me. He's like, yes, I did. I left you. I called you twice and told you, fix it or else. So then Newsom said, I had no idea, blah, 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 flipped out. The judge was really bought this. And there was this provision in the statute where it says you have to go through the governor, right? You're exercising kind of through the governor, that the judge hung his hat on. He says over the course of the protest, there were 400 people arrested in total. So Gavin sued, saying you can't have the National Guard come in here. Judge gives us a bunch of analysis on the law, says I can definitely hear this case, right? So don't think that I can't. He says it's not a political question. This is not a standing problem or a justiciability problem where the court can't have jurisdiction over this. He says lots of case law says I can do this. And of course, judges, by default, they keep the cases, right? They're not going to say, I can't hear this case, because that would relieve them of power, and they almost never do that. So he's going to say, I can hear this case. Then he defines rebellion, right? He says, and first of all, we don't really know what the term rebellion means under the statute when the president can invoke this. So what does rebellion mean? So he says, let's go over to the Black's Law Dictionary, and we can say rebellion means, open resistance or opposition to an authority or a tradition. That sounds pretty accurate to me. There's a bunch of people with Mexican flags there in California who are interfering with federal operation of law. How is that not open resistance? Anybody who is protesting and actually physically stopping ICE from doing their jobs, even if they're standing on the ground peacefully, you might call it civil disobedience or whatever, and say it's justified, and like Martin Luther King or whatever, and say it's fine, just don't give up your seat and all that stuff. Whatever you want, that's fine. But if you're obstructing a federal enforcement operation, that is now obstruction. That's a crime. So you can call it civil disobedience or whatever, but it's not peaceful, and it's not hostile. It's actually trying to slow the operation and the enforcement of the law. So, and they're waving foreign Mexican flags while they're doing it. And Rosa Parks wasn't somebody who was creating a crime by sitting in her seat, as the story goes. So here you see, they give us this definition, and an open and avowed renunciation of the authority here. One owes allegiance. Open resistance and lawful authority, another definition. Goes through the English language. Goes through rebellion from the cyclopedic definition. Open resistance to or defiance of lawful authority. He's going to go all the way back to 1903. Well, what's a rebellion here? And so first we have to talk about what is a rebellion. And he says the protests in LA, his conclusion, fall far short of rebellion. They're obstructing federal law enforcement. They're saying F ICE. They're breaking in federal court building windows. They're shooting fireworks at federal agents. They are waving foreign flags. They are attacking cops and National Guard troops. They're breaking windows at the LAPD building. They're being arrested. They're violating lawful orders to disperse. And it's not a rebellion, though. It's not a rebellion. These are peaceful protests, right? Says this psycho judge in California. Defendants refer repeatedly to violent rioters and mobs. And so the court pauses to state that says there can be no debate that most protesters demonstrated peacefully. Okay, there can be no debate. And again, nobody's having problems with the peaceful protesters. So stop trying to include something that's not a part of the case into the case. There is actually a debate about that. And there were some protesters that, of course, are peacefully protesting in certain places. And that's not, the National Guard's there to protect federal personnel and federal property. So if the peaceful protesters are not attacking federal personnel and federal property, then they're not going to be a party to the enforcement mechanisms of the National Guard, right? This is for the non-peaceful protesters. But the judge is just going to say, right, anytime this happens, you know that they're being dishonest. Like a good judge or a good lawyer would explain that. Anytime you say stuff like this, and I catch myself doing it too, like it's obvious or it's clear or there can be no doubt, there is no debate, trust me, right? It always means it's usually the opposite. There's like a lot of debate about it, and usually it goes the other direction. So nonetheless, it is also beyond debate that some individuals use the protest as an excuse for violence. And some bad actors on June 6, the new J6, threw concrete chunks, bottles of liquid, and other objects at officers. Right, just like they called that, they charged the Proud Boys with seditious conspiracy for that, you maniac. Throwed objects at other officers. The Proud Boys, one of the charges was throwing a water bottle. Remember that? If the Proud Boys do it, it's seditious conspiracy. If Mexicans do it waving their flags around, it's just a peaceful protest. What kind of insane country is this? Says others threw rocks and other objects, including a Molotov cocktail. How many J6ers charged with seditious conspiracy threw Molotov cocktails? None! A violent crowd boxed in officers, threw fireworks, rocks, and mangoes. What? One of the fruit guys was just there? He's like, buy some fruit. Nobody wanted to buy fruit. He's like, fine. And trapped one officer in her car, surrounding it, shaking it, throwing stones at it. Some people, and she didn't shoot anybody in the chest and kill them. Some people in the neck. Some people on June 8th set off fireworks towards officers and threw objects at their vehicle. Santa Cruz, someone also fired paintballs. A crowd injured 5 LAPD officers. Now, violence is necessary for a rebellion, says the judge, but it's not sufficient. So even accepting that there were people throwing fireworks, rocks, and mangoes, and concrete chairs, and all bottles of liquids, and the armed in the 1903 sense, the court is aware of no evidence in the record of any actual firearms, which is hilarious because that's what we said for January 6th. And there is little evidence of whether the violent protesters' actions were even open or avowed. They're waving Mexican flags. Judge, can you see? Some presumably engaged violently with officers at close quarters in the daylight, while many others threw items under the cover of darkness, protected by a crowd, identities concealed. Just change the party. Don't make it Mexican illegals and just make it a January 6er. You think this judge would write anything like this for a citizen of the United States who is protesting a rigged election, as is their right to go in to federal government property and make that argument, you could say, as a form of protest? Certainly, the, quote, peaceful, he underlines it, were organized to some degree in that people generally knew where to go to participate in the protest because they're doing organized flash mobs to obstruct the ICE agents. But there is no evidence of organized violence. They have chat groups, brother. They've got entire websites, all right? Nor is there evidence that any of the violent protesters were attempting to overthrow the government as a whole. Yeah. The evidence is overwhelming that the protesters gathered for a single issue, which are the raids, and they're allowed to do that. And again, by protesting the operation of a raid, you're obstructing a federal enforcement operation. While Trump have pointed to several instances of violence, they've not identified a violent, armed, organized, open, avowed uprising against the government as a whole. Yes, we have, by the way. And first of all, that is a way the judge is being dishonest here because he just defined what rebellion is. Okay, open resistance to lawful authority. He just defined it right there. Like, I didn't write that, he did. Black's Law Dictionary, first edition, 1891. It's right there. Okay, said it again. Look at this one, 1901. Open resistance to or defiance of lawful authority. Then, like, that's the definition from 2 encyclopedias. That's it. Trump can meet that standard. The judge doesn't get to come in here and then unpack that and dissect that. The judge is adding in other words, new checkboxes to the definition. Open resistance to or defiance of lawful authority, but ... Judge Bill Clinton came out and said, You also have to be overthrowing the entire government, right? So the judge is just making stuff up, adding it into the analysis because he's a partisan hack. Now, moreover, the court is troubled by the implication over First Amendment rights and rebellions, and saying illegals should now have First Amendment protections to do whatever they want in our country. They can break into the country, then they can interfere and obstruct with federal enforcement operations. They can wave their foreign flags around in our faces, and they get First Amendment privileges to do it too. And if you try to stop them from torching your buildings down, you are in violation of the law, Mr. President. So the judge continues, right? It's pretty nuts. He goes through posse comitatus and the rest of it. And ultimately, at the end, he says, you have to remove your power. Trump, you are enjoined from deploying National Guard in LA. And Trump is directed to give control back to Gavin Newsom. And the court further stays this order until June 13th. And this is what Gavin was so excited about. He said, and this is also wild, right? So Gavin Newsom, remember, you have to post a bond before the judge is going to issue an injunction. There are federal rules of civil procedure on this. But the judge said the bond was $100, not $1 like a lot of the other judges like Boasberg. Just $100 to cover the costs of the destruction. And Trump is also ordered to show cause and said that you have to give up your power today at noon. Signed by Democrat hack judge Charles Breyer from California, who doesn't have any idea how definitions work and just makes stuff up, cites the definition that is appropriate, and Trump just meets that standard, right? And that's how courts should be looking at things. That's judicial review. Trump says, I think there's a rebellion. Okay, well, does he issue a proclamation? Yes. Does a proclamation talk about people who are opposing the government? Great. The lowest standard that I can find, they meet it. So you give them the benefit of the doubt. Not the judge saying, actually, I went and I found the standard that you're clearly meeting, and I'm going to make it much harder for you so I can find that you are acting illegally. It is a coup by the judges, and they're manipulating the laws in order to secure an outcome. Now, Trump, of course, has been successful in this. They filed an immediate notice of appeal as soon as this crap order came down, and they were successful. The Court of Appeals issued the order, and they came back down writing the following. The court has received the government's emergency motion for a stay, which we'll look at, and the request for the stay is granted. Gavin Newsom not getting power today. Gavi, take your video down and delete your account. The district court's June 12th temporary restraining order from Democrat Judge Hack is temporarily stayed, and the response to the motion is due here, and the panel is going to hold a remote hearing next week, June 17th at 12 p.m. So ultimately, we'll see where this goes and whether the judges reverse this. But quick share of what Trump submitted in the Court of Appeals. Not too long of a filing. You see 324 pages up here, but it is mostly an addendum and attachments. But here is what they submitted that was successful in the Court of Appeals, at least for now. They sent this one in. They said, all right, the district court has entered, this judge, an unprecedented order enjoining the president from deploying the National Guardsmen to protect federal officers from ongoing violence and protests. Now, that order from this judge is an extraordinary intrusion on the president's constitutional authority as commander-in-chief to call forth the National Guard. And this should be immediately stayed, and it was. They say, here's why. First of all, the president is specifically authorized by the law to deploy the National Guard when there is a rebellion, or when the president is unable with regular forces to execute the law. He's got two prongs. Both of them apply here. He can act under either power. One, the violent actions taken by a large number of protesters, whom local law enforcement admit that they have been ineffective to control, constitute a rebellion. It's a rebellion against federal authority and have impeded the ability of ICE to enforce federal law. And they're waving foreign flags while they're doing it. The president accordingly mobilized the National Guard to temporarily protect ICE and the U.S. government while they're doing their jobs. But the district court, Breyer, concluded that the statutory conditions were not satisfied. It's not a rebellion because they're mostly peaceful. But that second guessing the president's military judgments is a gross violation of the separation of powers. In fact, 200 years ago, the Supreme Court made clear These judgment calls are for the president to make, not a governor, and certainly not a federal court. But in any case, even if this judge could look at this, the president had more than ample grounds to determine that those riots rose to the level of a danger of a rebellion and that the state and local law enforcement were unable to do their job, so he had to. Now, the district court also found that Trump's memo was not issued through the governor, within the meaning of the law. But that was also mistaken. In fact, the president's memo directed the Secretary of Defense to effectuate the nationalization of the Guard and transfer authority over to where it needs to go. Nothing in the statute requires the governor's office, Gavin, to consent to any of this. This is a legal theory that would have empowered the governor of Arkansas to block Eisenhower from deploying the National Guard to desegregate over there with the racist Democrat governor in Arkansas. In any event, any failure to issue an order through the governor, who indisputably already had notice about this, he had no legal authority to block this, would be an improper injunction against us. The lower level judge's order, the Democrat judge, improperly impinges on our supervisional powers of the military, countermands a military directive, and literally puts federal officers and others in harm's way. The balancing of the harms mean we should win, and so we're asking for a stay. Obviously, they got it. They give us some background on the National Guard and the U.S. Constitution, and some more factual background as we're familiar with. 5 p.m., people started to gather. Protesters threw bottles, concrete chunks, and other objects. Officers were pinned down in a defensive position. In federal buildings, they used large rolling commercial dumpsters as battering rams to break in. Officers feared for their safety, but they didn't shoot anybody in the neck and then get paraded around by the media like heroes. ICE and Homeland Security investigation officers responded to support Federal Protective Service officers under siege and attempted to use non-lethal force to disperse the crowd. Meanwhile, protesters turned extremely violent. News reports show them use chairs, dumpsters, and other weapons. In fact, the LAPD declared an unlawful assembly, ordered protesters to disperse, but they started attacking the cops instead. They weren't cleared for several hours, leaving extensive damage to multiple federal buildings. And this has been going on for multiple nights. So add up all the time for these foreign invaders, compare and contrast that with the 3 to 4 hour riot that occurred in the Capitol on January 6th. And you can see how one is turned into something it isn't and the other is minimized. That night, Trump spoke with Newsom, told Newsom, hey, you get your act together or we're going to come in here. You better stop the violence right now. The next day, the violence only got worse. Crowd blocked traffic, can't execute federal law, and began to attack the ERO, the group of guys who were going to conduct the raids. The crowd surrounded a vehicle, shaking and pounding on the car, pummeling it with stones. Protesters boxed in federal officers, launching mortar-style fireworks with multiple explosions at them, throwing objects of all natures, shattering the wrist of an officer. The perimeter fence of the building was also breached and several vehicles were damaged. Now, protests continued in the following days. Commercial-grade fireworks, federal and state buildings damaged, officers injured, federal complex closed due to the unrest, and severely damaged and vandalized. Now, in response to this, Trump came out, signed his order, said, we're going to come clean this up. Since those calls, we've been actually protecting the people. So then Gavin said, how dare you? And he sued. Trump says, well, we just got a loss from this lower level judge, but we're going to appeal this, which we're doing now, and here's why we're going to win. Congress has explicitly authorized the president to call in the Guard, and he properly invoked these people in this case. These incidents were threatening federal building and property, and he did this to protect those property as identified in the memo. But the district court said, this actually isn't a rebellion, despite defining rebellion for us very clearly. He says it's actually not. The term rebellion, however, is not limited to an organized attempt to change the government or leader of a country, as they said, right? It's got to be very high. It's not what it is. Even California's cited definition includes open resistance to an authority or tradition, or disobedience of a legal command or summons. And in fact, even the predecessor, 12406, the predecessor, I think Madison used to put down the whiskey rebellion, a protest against government taxes, right? They were just mad about taxes on whiskey, not an effort to change the country's leader. And that was a rebellion. And so we said that we could use basically the militia, to put that down. Even Black's Law says that it is disobedience of legal command. That is exactly what's happening here. Protest and acts of violence are a form of rebellion against the authority when they directly inhibit the execution of its laws. Now, the basis for the conclusions about this violence cannot reasonably be questioned. Their own declarant from Newsom even says that they've engaged in dangerous behavior. They're throwing Molotov cocktails, burning vehicles, looting gas stations, vandalizing property. We even have multiple exhibits of it. Massive crowds throwing projectiles at police vehicles driving by through their windshields. This is clear evidence on the face that you cannot control this with regular forces. In fact, it even took the LAPD 55 minutes to come here and respond. So the district court was wrong. They were incorrect, saying that the law was not followed. Physical injuries were occurring against cops. And decisions related to the deployment of militias are entrusted to political branches. They're not entrusted to federal judges. And the idea that we had to go through Gavin is a misread of the law. The president and the secretary of defense satisfied the procedural requirements. Okay, Gavin got all the due process he needed here. The president spoke with Newsom about the situation in LA. The next day, signed a memo federalizing the guardsmen. Okay, talked to him and did it. The secretary of defense then issued a memo, a state cabinet level in California. And so the memorandum even bore the label through the governor of California. Now, contrary to the conclusion, we literally transmitted the order through the official who issues the order, and that's exactly what we were required to do. Nothing in the statute says that Gavin Newsom needed to mobilize them himself. There's a fundamental difference between being issued by somebody and being issued through somebody. The latter structure aligns with the purpose of this procedural requirement, and here they're incorrect to suggest that the president needed to get Governor Newsom's permission. That would be ridiculous. We saw that with other prior invocations of this type of power. It is similarly well established when the president lawfully federalizes the National Guard. The Posse Comitatus Act doesn't apply because there's an exception to that for federal functions. The other stay strongly favors the government, by the way, other factors. Here, if you require us to remove these people, federal employees are going to be exposed to violence. National Guard members are already under attack, have been under attack. Mobs pounded, shook, violently pummeled a bunch of people with stones, and Guard members were under attack even that evening. The government also suffers irreparable harm when our federal immigration officers are prevented from doing their jobs because they're being harassed by mobs of protesters in flash mobs. On the other side of the ledger, Newsom has not established any irreparable harm. And we have a strong overriding interest in eliminating civil unrest. Now, even if some form of relief is warranted, it should have been more tailored, and it's not. And so this is all extremely flawed. At minimum, the injunction should be stayed so that the National Guard can protect federal agencies at minimum and enforce immigration laws, which are federal rights. Signed here by Anna O. Mohan. What's up, Anna? Saying you should issue an immediate stay. And of course, she was successful in that attempt. So a big victory temporarily for the president, and Gavin Newsom, embarrassed, says Trump is going to be relieved of duty at noon. No, he's not. Now we've got even more time. And this was a fun clip of Gavin. He's so pathetic that he just keeps regurgitating the same lines over and over. We were calling him, Hollywood actor yesterday. And that's essentially what he is. This was assembled by Maze. Amazing on X says, hey, Gavin, might be time for a new catchphrase there. This one is played out. And also, you might want to seek some professional projection help with your problems, for your problems. Here is what this montage sounds like. It's a lot of Gavin, but just illustrates a point.
A rising tide of oppression taking root in state houses, weaknesses masquerading as strength, small men.
He's just weakness masquerading as strength. He is weakness masquerading as strength. Weakness masquerading as strength.
What I saw tonight was Donald Trump, weakness masquerading as strength.
He's weakness masquerading as strength. He's a broken person. He's weakness masquerading as strength. He's a broken person.
They're just weakness masquerading as strength.
They're cosplaying. That's just weakness. Weakness masquerading as strength.
A rising
Totally pathetic. Says the same thing over and over again. I know many of us have crutch statements that we say, but Gavin just is reciting the same copy and paste that the rest of the Democrats are usually regurgitating out of their mouths. Now, what's happening still in LA after the judge is issuing an order saying the National Guard needs to go, BG on the scene was over there, and he's showing us what it looks like outside federal buildings. This reposted by Andy No says LA, an unlawful assembly has been declared as insurrectionists gathered outside a federal building in hopes of attacking it on the 7th day of the riot. It's been going on for a week. Meanwhile, a liberal federal judge just said, get the National Guard out of here so all these illegal Mexicans with their Mexican flags out here can come out, and their Guatemalan flags also come out and continue to protest and interfere with federal operations, which is in full swing with the stated goal of deport, deport, deport. They keep saying peaceful protest, but that's not actually what it is. Okay, so just to be clear for this moron judge called Charles, this judge said, right, that it's not a rebellion because they're not trying to overthrow the government. That was in his opinion. Here's a video literally of this dude waving a Mexican flag saying the Trump fascist regime must go now. So literally there, obstructing and impeding the operation of federal law by preventing them from using their building, which is where they're going to operate their operations. He's outside obstructing, waving a foreign flag, saying Trump must go. It's all the elements of a rebellion right there. It's clear. This happened the same day that the judge wrote his stupid opinion. Unlawful assembly, get out. Look at those buildings. All cops are Bs. Cops are Bs. Bs go in here. F ICE. Look at all that. Look at all that peaceful symbols and symbol messages, which are, of course, federal crimes.
Those symbols immediately disperse, which means to break this symbol. If you do not do so, you may be arrested, subject to other police action. Other police actions may include the use of chemical, less lethal ammunition, which could cause significant risk, serious injury to those who remain. The following routes of dispersal are north on Alameda and south on Alameda. You have 5 minutes to disperse.
So get out, and that's what's happening. The judge said that federalization of the National Guard and any support of federal property or buildings against these maniac foreign invaders with foreign flags is inappropriate. The Court of Appeals stayed it for the time being, but this is just happening in one sanctuary city location. There are other sanctuary cities, like in New York, that are also embedding and enabling the same type of behavior. We'll see if the protests occur there when the raids there start in full. But this is Tim Burchett lacing into Kathy Hochul. Kathy, do you understand the difference between legal and illegal?
Illegal aliens are unlawfully present in the United States. They should not be here in the first place to commit crimes. Don't you agree with that?
It depends on the circumstances of coming over. I mean, there's civil violations, there's also criminals. So it's the federal government's determination on the status of an individual. If they're
But I mean, if they're not here, the crime's not going to be committed.
I think if there was not
they're not going to be here, ma'am, the crime is not going to be committed.
If there was no one in our country, no crimes would be committed. I suppose you could say the same thing.
a young man in my district whose family is very close to me lost their son to an illegal alien. And I can guarantee you if that illegal alien, if we'd followed the laws of the land and there'd been some enforcement, that young man would be here today. Well, let me ask you this. Why did your state issue say that you are welcome with open arms in reference to illegal aliens? That was a direct quote attributed to you, ma'am.
It's a 400-year history we have in the state of New York of welcoming all. I don't know why we would change that now.
Okay, Governor Pritzker, you mentioned in your opening statement that criminals have no place in our country, but Cook County released numerous criminal migrants last year, including one that was charged with raping a minor. Why would you release a criminal rapist back into your community?
Thank you, Congressman. First of all, we don't need to release somebody if ICE or another law enforcement authority shows up with a judicial warrant. Then that's just the fact. And if somebody gets released, it's usually because they've had due process and determined not to be eligible to be held.
Okay, so they want every single person who comes through their system, right? So they come in, they identify, somebody gets charged with a crime. You're in Illinois, some young minor gets physically violated by an illegal foreign invader criminal maniac, comes in, gets charged with a crime, right? Don't know the circumstances of that case, whatever. Sounds like he was convicted. It showed up in the records. He was released for whatever reason. I don't know, maybe because of extenuating circumstances there, whatever. But while he's there, they say, oh, you're an illegal? ICE could send in just a friendly government request. Hey, you know he's illegal. We know he's illegal. How about we issue a detainer? You just hang on to him. We'll come pick him up. Many other states do that. Happens all over the place. You don't need to force ICE to go to a judge and get a warrant. This is requiring the government to do something that they're not legally required to do. And then he sits around and acts like he's just a reasonable person. Just go get a judicial warrant. You've already got custody of the dude, bro. You know he's illegal. Just hang on to him. You already have cause to hold him. So just hold him for 2 additional seconds so ICE can come pick him up. But they don't want to do that because it takes a bunch of time to go get a judicial warrant. And these are illegal aliens who are not entitled to the Article 3 courts. They're subject to immediate removal since they're non-citizens. So they're just convoluting the whole thing up in due process. It's not even required for the illegals. And doing it to protect people who are abusing minors who are coming from foreign countries.
That's
okay. But do you know what happened after that individual was released?
I don't. But again, a judicial warrant, if appropriate.
I'll tell you, 17 days later, he was charged with a homicide.
Oh, great.
And Cook County also released a migrant charged with domestic violence in August of 2024. Do you know what this individual was charged with 1 month later?
No, sir, I'm not sure what.
Aggravated criminal sexual assault and abuse of minor.
Yep.
And as governor, have you done anything to ensure local and county governments aren't releasing illegal immigrants charged with sexual or violent crimes?
As a matter of fact, first of all, we chase down criminals every single day. We put them in jail. We try them, put them through due process. They get convicted. They get put into our correction system. We do that every single day. You're implying that we're not. We are. In fact, our law enforcement are some of the best in the country. They do their job.
Well, if these laws were enforced, then I would assume these people wouldn't be back out on the streets so freely.
Yeah, you could have just held on to the dude that you released that went out and eliminated somebody after that. Could have held on to him. ICE could have came and picked him up, and you would have been in total compliance with the law, and that other person would not be dead now.
How many programs does Illinois have that explicitly supports illegal immigrants?
So we've created programs to deal with not illegal. I mean, we have one program that's related to undocumented people who are.
I'm out of time,
the most vulnerable.
The answer is at least 4. Health benefits for immigrants, HBIS, health benefits for immigrants, adults, HBI, retention of Illinois students, and equity. RISE is the acronym for that.
Yeah, we're paying for and funding our own invasion, and we've got traitorous governors creating sanctuary cities for foreigners, ignoring and scoffing at the rest of us. So we see Gavin Newsom loses that one for the time being, Trump's going to relinquish power. No, he's not, Gavin. You're pathetic. Try again. We'll, of course, keep our eye on this one. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. We'll await more briefing and check back in on the final Zoom hearing, which will be happening next week. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, so let's talk about elections now, because we got to talk about this other Democrat judge who is now acting like a Democrat judge. An Obama judge now changing the elections again. Doesn't want any proof of citizenship being presented. Trump came out and issued an executive order saying we're going to secure our elections since we've got millions of illegals in here, a percentage of whom are absolutely participating in our elections, and we want to stop that. So Trump came out with an executive order, and then we had lawsuits fly in the aftermath. And this decision just came down out of guess where? Massachusetts. And we'll read through it quickly to see what the latest is on it. But you've got a 44-page memorandum opinion coming from this judge. She's an Obama judge, and we have heard from her before following this case along. Was in office in 2010, been there for quite some time, went to Harvard, and is now saying, we are going to prevent you from checking status when you're voting in elections. And she's the first black female judge to serve in Massachusetts. Historic, incredible. So here's what she came down with. And of course, we expect Trump to appeal this. Have not seen it come out yet in the docket. Let's do a refresh just to see if anything has dropped on this. But it's been going on for a long time. This is the full docket. She just issued the order as of today, and here's what it says. We'll hit the highlights on it. It surely will be appealed. But she said, all right, look, on March 25th, Trump issued an executive order. We remember, we're excited about it, preserving and protecting American elections. And what this does is it requires the Election Assistance Committee and the Secretary of Defense to implement documentary proof of citizenship requirements with federal voter registration forms that must be used. So all the blue states sued. Arizona, which is purplish, California, Nevada, Michigan, Maine, Illinois, Delaware, New York, all of them. They sued. They said, we have to check to make sure people are citizens? That's going to wreck everything for us. We don't want to do that. So then after careful consideration, here's what the judge says. The court allows the state's motion to succeed, and Trump's order is stopped. In sum, she says the states are challenging the executive order, and their challenge is requiring the committee, the election committee, to take the appropriate action to require proof of citizenship. She says it's all appropriate, and I think the states are going to win. Here's why. The Constitution says states can prescribe the time, place, and manner of elections, which they all manipulated back during the COVID era. There's existing federal law called UOCAVA, Uniform Oversees All the Different Voters, HAVA, NVRA, and more. She gives us a lot of the rules, right? So we call this like the rules section, where she's just laying out all of the things that we're going to be discussing. She also brings up the executive order. Says specifically, documentary proof is what is in there. And so now we're comparing the executive order against all the laws, okay? Everyone sued. The states filed this action back on April 3rd, all the blue states, and now we have to decide whether there is a preliminary injunction. We got the four factors we talk a lot about now, whether they're going to win, irreparable harm, burden, and public interest. And here we finally get to some analysis. She says, all right, while the consolidated matters before this court raise questions concerning the standing of the parties to even sue, she's going to find I've got standing. Also, rebutting the argument from the Trump people that this case is not ripe. Like, we haven't broken any laws yet. What's your problem? Why are they allowed to sue? They said, well, it's ripe enough, and they're going to win. She says, it is ripe. The critical question is whether there is something that I can resolve, and I think that there is. There is a hardship here, and so I can resolve this. Running statewide elections is difficult for them, and if they have to check status, that's going to be even harder for them. Now, as to the merits, other forms already exist, and when Congress enacted the law, it assigned the responsibility for the form to the EAC, right? So here's the background. HAVA, the form goes to the EIC, which they say is an independent and bipartisan panel, and it required the EAC to revise the form only if they have 3 people who approve of it. And Trump says, wait a minute, your executive order is saying that your argument is that we're trying to commandeer this, but that's not at all what we're doing. We're saying we want them to take appropriate action to. It's not a requirement, so it's just like a nudge. The executive branch also says that we have executive power, and when the EAC is operating, they are exercising executive power. And we have supervisory authority over this, so we're coloring within the lines. Now, the question is whether we can interpret this law to be more narrow through another clause, right? In other words, Trump, you don't have as much power as you claim to have. Going through all the different provisions and enumerating a bunch of laws, going through various sections of the executive order and what they're challenging, and just taking them one at a time, it looks like. That's why it's such a long opinion. Now, the executive branch insists that states arbitrarily treat some people's votes differently when they permit absentee votes to come in, or illegal votes, right? If illegals vote, then that means your vote, your share of the vote, is diminished. Now, even if the election day statutes could be read to bar states from counting ballots received after election day, civil enforcement actions have to go through a different mechanism. And so the whole, a lot of kind of analysis here. Here we go, to some irreparable harm. Saying if you require proof of citizenship, there will be harm. The states have said that if you require citizenship, it's going to require a bunch of record-keeping problems. And it's going to take databases up to a year of new programming and other things. The states have also shown that they're going to have to issue guidance. We got to check IDs. We need proof of citizenship. How are we going to do that? In fact, in Maryland, the concurrent development of training materials would require 35 to 40% of its resources. If you have to check IDs, it's going to require 40% of our time. And the judge is going to say that's a significant harm for them. It's going to demand time and resources. The ballot receipts that they need to get will require they have to train a bunch of people. In fact, Cook County says we normally hire 8,000 people. They're all going to have to be trained. In Nevada, public education will mean newspaper notices, social media posts. Vermont, they've already begun outreach to people, but it's going to take a lot of time. And this is all going to be hard. There's going to be voter registration list maintenance, and it's going to disrupt already the crucial work that they're doing for the next election. And it's going to divert resources from other programs, and it's threatening them too. You're threatening to take away their federal funding if they don't do this. And so they're clearly being harmed. It says this is unquestionable harm to the states. According to the states, many eligible voters lack ready access to citizenship documents. Oh, why is that? Because they're illegal? Well, they can't get documents. I think that Kamala Harris said something like black people don't have the internet or something like that. Citizenship documents are also expensive. In Rhode Island, it's $165 to obtain a passport. Okay, do you need a passport? And the city of Providence, $22 to, that's what I'm saying, get a birth certificate. It's like $15 for a reprint, $22. Go get it. For this reason and others, we can't do that. Here you go. Saying that approximately 50% of Americans do not have a passport. Okay. 2/3 of black Americans lack a passport, and passport ownership increases dramatically with income. You don't need a passport. Go get a birth certificate. Some state citizens will face specific challenges with respect to obtaining proof. For example, in regions along Maine, many residents are citizens, but they lack proof of citizenship because they have a Canadian birth certificate and they don't have passports. Okay, well, then maybe they shouldn't be voting if we can't prove it. New Mexico has attested that its unique population and geographic dynamics, namely its remote villages and 19 federally recognized national Native American tribes, are also remote, and they can't go get their documents. So we can't check anybody because some 17 tribes in New Mexico have a problem. Massachusetts has a significant student population, and students are too dumb, and most of whom will be registering for the first time, and they may not have their proof of citizenship status either. And so this likelihood, and You could also, right, go through this process. So like you could say, you'll do your validation when you get your driver's license. Okay, so provide your social, provide your, all your information. The MVD will validate. They'll give you your license. Great, you got your license and it's issued by Arizona. Then we can just presume that you're a citizen because we did a check on the back end. So do the same thing. In other words, you don't need to bring your birth certificate with you when you go to vote. You just bring your ID because the state has said that everybody who gets a driver's license, we're not going to give illegals driver's licenses unless you're California and other places. So if you have a driver's license and we don't give driver's licenses to illegals, then we've done the validation at the state level. So just bring your driver's license from Arizona. You don't need anything else. Do you drive? This likelihood of disenfranchisement is a serious harm. And maybe people don't. Do you have an ID form? Go get an ID form. The right to vote free. Do you have an ID to get access to your gym? Says, or whatever you do. Yes, the executive branch questions the imminence of these harms, but the equities here say that Trump loses. The executive branch says we have a strong obligation to make sure we don't have rigged elections, but there's little evidence that you checking status is going to make sure we don't have rigged elections. She says the executive branch can use other tools and you don't need to check status. And so when there is an injunction that is issued, she says we're not going to require even an injunction bond. And so the Obama judge comes out and says, for the foregoing reasons, Trump is now enjoined. Don't even have to post a bond. Doesn't cost anything to have illegals voting in our election. And nothing in this says that Trump can't take lawful action, but his executive order is now injuncted and is stopped. So another judge acting just as you'd expect, Judge Denise Casper. We're sure Trump's going to appeal it and hopefully get aggressive in this litigation to secure our elections because it's all interrelated. The illegals are here to seize control of the land, seize control of the judiciary, seize control of Congress, and reconquista their way back into America. And by having illegals not checked and voting in elections, that gives them another mechanism to do it. So Denise J. Casper, another district court judge who's siding with illegals against safe and secure elections from a duly elected president. We'll keep our eye on this one. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, one more update on the day, my friends. And then we'll hear from you. And it's just a beautiful one. This one is just amazing. So let's start right here with this right there. It's perfect. Perfect way to start it. Jamie Raskin has an absolute meltdown. He is, what's the right word for this? Jamie Raskin has an absolute meltdown. He is having a nice conversation with our friend Nick Sorter over on X, who had some simple questions for him, asking him about his support for one of his most favorite people in the world, Kilmar Abrego wife-beater human trafficker Garcia. And Raskin started to flip out during this very pleasant exchange from our perspective. And so shout out to Nick Sorter on X, who is the person who captured this for us. He wrote, exclusive, I confronted Democrat Rep. Jamie Raskin over his support for illegals, and he absolutely melted down. He called me a fascist and a QAnon, and then tried to run away. All I asked is if he still backed Kilmar Abrego Garcia after it was revealed that he was trafficking humans to Maryland, the state that Raskin represents. Hello? Now, he even tried to signal for the Capitol Police to come and get me minutes after he backed Alex Padilla's for crashing Kristi Noem's presser, calling him a liar and a hypocrite too. Now, of course, instead of answering the questions, he yelled incoherent blather and found a way to bring up Elon Musk. And so I encourage you to get some help there, Jamie. And so let's enjoy this together. Jamie Raskin, frothing at the mouth. You're a fascist. Get out of my face, you little fascist.
Get out of my face, you little fascist. Get out of my face. Congressman, quick question for you. So you initially,
Who are
originally,
you?
hi, my name is Nick.
Nick,
nice
from
to
where?
meet you.
Which
I'm from
media
X.
entity?
I'm from X. So I have to ask you.
Wait,
you said
you
Kilmar
have to get-
Abrego
excuse me.
Garcia.
You're gonna excuse
you
me.
voiced a lot of support for him originally. Now he's been charged with facilitating the
to your
transport
job. Go back to your
of
job.
illegals. Are you
Really?
still going to double down on that?
So he gets due process now? Do you
He
believe
gets
in
due
do you
process
believe in
now?
due process?
I
You
don't think he.
believe-
Wait,
Oh,
was
I
he
thought you
supposed
were
to be here to
American.
begin with? Was he illegal? Was he
Americans
illegally?
believe in
How
due
did
process.
how did Kilmar Abrego
Trump's
Garcia
judge
get here?
allowed him to be here.
How,
did you know that?
How
You
did he get here
Watch
originally?
out,
Did
you
he
can hurt
come here
yourself.
legally?
Your girlfriend's
Did he come here
calling.
legally?
Get back to your job,
Okay,
man.
so you can't answer the question.
Yeah, no.
Well, you seem a little.
Yeah, you do seem angry. He seems very angry. Look at him. Man, lit up. Now, what's funny about this is Kilmar got plenty of due process. We've talked about it here. He got due process during his first asylum proceedings when he was ordered to be removed. Then he got another lawyer, came back, filed for withholding of removal. He wanted to get out on bond. He appealed all of that. He had multiple avenues of due process and got even due process plus, got extra due process. In fact, wasn't even charged with crimes because his presumption of innocence was much stronger than everybody else. Anybody else gets caught trafficking humans, FBI doesn't let you go. If you are driving without a license or insurance, you're going to get charged for that. Kilmar was stopped for speeding, no registration, no license. Cops say, have a nice day. That ever happened to you ever? You get stopped for a registration ticket. Oh, I forgot to do. Cops said, I don't give a crap. Here's your fine. Eat it, citizen peasant. I got to go help some illegals. Get out of here. So Raskin is, I think, so mad because he is caught. The person that he was in love with, that he was supporting, sending Van Hollen down there with a gift basket for Kilmar, now realizing he's a wife beater who was trafficking people back to his state.
Angry about it. Is that why? Is it because you were made it to be a fool out over it? I mean, you were supporting a man whose wife accused him of beating her.
Trump's
You've gotta
judge
be
allowed him to
kidding
be in
me.
the country. Did you know that?
He's not.
Trump's judge allowed him to be in the country.
He was allowed in the
No,
country, and then what?
no,
And then
no,
what
check
happened?
it out.
And then what happened? Then he was deported back to his home country. You keep calling him the Maryland father, who apparently beats his wife, which she said on the record that he beats her.
Go back to your QAnon
so,
meeting.
Is
Go back
it
to
okay?
QAnon.
It's not QAnon, dude. She wrote that. She's the one who actually filed the orders of protections twice, saying that this dude was beating her and abusing her kids. And you guys support it.
With you, is it okay with you
QAnon's calling you.
to
Go
see
back to
illegals
QAnon.
smuggling other illegals through the country? Is
Go
that what
back
the
to
people of Maryland
Go back
want?
to QAnon.
The people of Maryland.
This is funny, man. He is pissed. And his staff looks like they're trying to continue to interfere with Jamie. Like, Jamie, just keep walking, dude. Just relax. Just keep walking. And it's like you see these heads like trying to come in, but then Jamie like walks back, right? So now this woman is blocking. And now Jamie, they're going to start to cross the street and he's going to walk back, right? He's like trying to like get around his staff. It's just amazing.
Huh?
You
Come
know
on,
all
man.
the
I mean,
fascists. Is
I
he in your
understand
group?
why you're
Is
so
he in your
angry
group?
about this because you look like a
I'm not
freaking
because
fool now. You
Get-
look ridiculous.
There she is, blocking.
You look ridiculous. I'm not in your face, bro.
You little fascist.
You got your little minions pushing me
fascist.
back. So come on.
There's something wrong with you,
I mean,
man.
these aren't very difficult
QAnon
questions.
is calling you.
Do
Get back to
you
QAnon.
condemn the transport of illegals throughout the country? Do you condemn that? Do you think that people
Get
should be
back
smuggling
to
other
QAnon.
illegals
Get back,
through
you
the
little
country?
fascist, to your
Okay, so you
QAnon
have no
chapter.
answer to that. It seems like a pretty.
Get back.
This
No,
is
I
a
believe in the
90-10
Constitution of the
issue,
United States.
Congressman.
No, you
believe in
don't,
due process
Jamie.
or no?
Do you get
Do
due
you
process?
believe in due
Wait,
process
so
or
you
not?
come in, you
No, answer me one question.
Okay,
you
what was the
little
process
fascist.
that he used to get
Do
into the
you
United
believe in
States?
due
Was
process?
it illegal?
You
Did
little
he come
fascist.
into the country legally?
One yes or no question. Do you believe in due process or not? Yes
Absolutely.
Or no?
Do
All
you?
right, good.
Now,
get
do
out
you
of my
believe
face.
that? All right, so you're not
Run
going to answer
away,
my question.
Jamie.
I
I already
answered
answered
yours.
50, you stupid
You
little
didn't answer a
fascist
single one. Are you
I
taking
told
back
you-
your support
I
for
told
Kilmar
you
Abrego
Donald
Garcia?
Trump's judge kept him in the country.
Okay, so
And
you're
you're not gonna
okay.
cover-
So you're not.
gonna
I'm gonna
print
post the whole
that.
thing
No,
unedited.
you're not-
Watch,
no,
watch.
no,
You'll
no.
see. Trust me, you'll see. Okay, so I'll give you one
Going
more
down
chance. Do you take back your support for an illegal alien who was in
I
the
never
country?
supported the illegal alien. What are you talking
No,
about? What's the
calling
quote?
him
What's your
calling him
quote?
the Maryland
Kilmar.
man, calling him a
What's the
constituent.
quote?
Are you serious?
He's not my constituent.
Of course
What are you
he's not,
talking
because
about?
he's illegal.
You're a moron, okay? As well as a fascist.
Fascist.
Go back to your QAnon
See,
meeting.
these
You're a
talking
moron
points
and a
work.
fascist.
There's a
That's
reason
quite
the
a
Democrat
combination.
parties. There's a reason that your approval rating is in the single digits
Your
at this
approval
point.
rating is -3 points.
Oh,
man. Go-
No, it's not. It's 100% approval, 110%. Nick Sorter has A+ ratings from The Watching the Watchers Bureau.
You got me, bro. You got me.
Go
You
get
got
a job.
me.
Yeah, I did get
You got
you.
me.
I
Okay.
did get you, yeah.
Okay. So,
Goodbye. Go
so
have
are
a
you
great
okay? Are
weekend.
you okay with the deportation? Do you think Marylanders want illegals coming into their state? Violent criminal gangbangers?
You're seriously a moron. You know that.
No, he's not.
So you can't. That's a
seriously
pretty
a
easy
moron.
question. That's a layup
No,
question,
Donald
Congressman.
Trump's judge kept him in our state. Go look it
Okay,
up,
is
brother.
he the only
Go
illegal
look
in
it up.
Maryland? Is he the only criminal illegal in Maryland? Okay, so you're saying.
Well, I don't know. Is Elon Musk?
So-
no,
so-
yeah, Elon
so
Musk
you're
said
saying
Donald Trump
that
should be-
everybody else-
Do you think
Are you-
Elon Musk
so-
should have been deported?
So all
'Cause he
the-
wasn't illegal
all-
alien.
no, he wasn't.
Wait, yes, he was.
So all these
oh,
other,
he wasn't?
all these other
Tell me why he
illegals in
wasn't.
Maryland.
Deport
All these other
illegals.
criminal
You don't agree
illegals
with
in Maryland.
Steve
Are you okay?
Okay, so Jamie Raskin is going to have the moral equivalency between Kilmar wife-beating human trafficker Arbrego Garcia, who was smuggling children, abusing female illegal aliens who he was smuggling, had to get hit with his own smugglers for stop being such a pervert. Raskin is going to compare and contrast that with Elon Musk. Amazing.
Let's
In
do
Maryland.
an easy- Let's do an easy one.
You wanna-
Do you support deporting criminal illegals at least?
What are you talking about?
Are you going to stick the police after me because I'm asking you a question? You've got to be kidding me. Don't try that.
There's something really wrong with you, man. You're sick in that.
No, just asking you. Just doing the American people want to know. Do you support
Oh, you speak for the
removing...
American people. Have you ever been elected to
do
public
you-
office?
do
What
you-
office were you elected to?
Do
You're speaking for the
you
American people.
support...
What office
do
were you elected to?
I'm not the one here to answer,
You
answer
said
the
you
question.
speak for the American
I
people.
do. I speak to over 1 million people.
Oh, wow.
All right, so
What a
yeah,
big
bro.
man.
Okay,
What a
so
big man.
so do you support removing criminal illegals from the country? Let's say that. It's an
Like
easy
Elon
one.
Musk.
Right.
Yes, I do. Do you support?
Okay.
You support removing Elon Musk from America.
All right,
Elon Musk
so
from the country
the
coming
answer
into
is
the
a no,
What's
right?
yours? No.
All right, so absolutely amazing. Shout out to Nick Sorter, my friends. Make sure you're giving him a follow. We're going to repost
yes or no?
that at the top of our timeline. So good. Shout out to Nick. Hopefully we see more of that. Jamie, you can just see, man, he's totally caught. He's like, oh crap, I do support wife-beating illegals in Maryland, including when they traffic more illegals into our country. And he's just can't even hide it. It's coming out of his face every 2 seconds. You normally don't see Congress people just lose it like this, right? You just, okay, you got some good ones. Like here, for example, let me show you a much better person. Here, let's find Tim Burchett stalker. So here's like a better way to deal with this than Jamie Raskin. Yeah, here's one stalker. Not saying that Nick Sorter is a stalker or something but here's like how a professional would deal with it. And Jamie Raskin has a meltdown. Here was Tim Burchett.
Congressman Perry, do you trust Trump's national security team to keep our war plans top secret?
Do you trust your mother every night to fix your hot pockets and make sure your Game Boy is turned on?
So, see, that's the difference between Democrats and Republicans. Democrats are just hysterical lunatics. They just can't take it. You ask them a simple question, they start screaming all over the place. And you're like, gosh, Jamie, you're a sitting congresswoman, man. You weird person. What's your problem? So, shout out to Nick Sorter. Love that, man. Make sure you're following him, supporting that work, so we can continue to see Democrats having meltdowns when they're asked simple questions about why they love illegals so much and hate America. All right, my friends, what a beautiful day and a beautiful stream it has been. Thank you for joining us on this lovely Friday, and happy Friday. Welcome. We're hopeful that you had an amazing week, and we're very glad that you're here. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for supporting us with these great donos and comments that have come in the house. We got a bunch of them. Thank you for sending these in. We even got some memes on the day. Let's see what we got cooking here today, my friends. Thank you for being here. And thanks for subscribing to our channel if you haven't already done that. And we appreciate you. This one came in from Voice of the People. Says, Raskin is so pathetic, but the only thing anyone can find on him is sleazy comments and blatant lies. From Voice of the People. Off Label says, finishing the sanctuary state governor's hearing tonight over at Off Label Podcast. Come vote on who to listen to and who to skip. Riot watching over on Saturday. So check out Off Label Podcast. We got this one from Lil Kim Jong-un. Oh, it's Lil Kim Jong. He's from North Korea. And we'll just read this as written. And if you're offended in North Korea, send me an email. Hey, Lil Kim Jong-un. Hello, America. Hey, Rob. How come Republicans know serious about immigration and congressional seats? Why they know just right on one-page law that says illegals can't be counted in census? why they no write one-page laws on immigration and force everyone to vote on them and see who is for and against protecting illegals? It's a great question. Very great question from Lil Kim Jong-un. Lil Kim Jong sent this one. This one saying, imagine being so fake that you're saying you'll fight ICE if they enter your classroom, but didn't want to arm yourselves to protect them from school shooters. Yeah, good comment. This one, Lil Kim Jong-un. Ladies and gentlemen, the senator from California now has the floor. Nailed it. This one from Lil Kim Jong-un. Who had Democrats burning and looting in 2025? Anyone have that on their bingo card? Oh, yeah, everyone. Thank you for that. Lil Kim Jong says, people are going to try playing stupid games this weekend, and they're going to find out. Here's a meme. Every Marine in my command owes me 100 nose rings, and I want my nose rings. Remember this one? Who's old enough to remember this one? Remember when Bill Clinton and Janet Reno sent men with automatic weapons to kick a child refugee out of America, and Democrats cheered that? Remember that? Yeah, they wanted to send that guy back to, because they support communists. So they don't like communists leaving communism. Remember that? Elian Gonzalez, right? Hey, Lil Kim Jong-un. This one says, incredible move by your strategic military leaders to spend the night in high-rise apartments instead of underground bunkers. Really just incredible. Yeah, Lil Kim Jong-un says Iran's nuclear water park is apparently closed for repairs temporarily when you try to get travel directions on Google. Their nuclear water park is closed, maybe permanently. Relantel, what's up, Relantel? Thank you, Relantel, for bringing in 10 new Membo friends. What's up? Inspire Pieces here. We got Basil Razzle. What's up, Anna Kalia? We got M. Maroke is joining us. Drone Slot. What's up, Tina Darsh? Jana Bell. Erica Oren. What's up, the tree? We got David Severn and Salty. All gifted Membos in the house on the day. Thank you, Relantel, for doing that. Hey, this one came in from Lil Kim Jong-un. Says, a gas mask, $20. George Soros paid bus ticket to California, $50. Seeing an Antifa thug get shot in the nuts with a beanbag round, priceless. For some things, there's money. For NAD shots, there's the government. Hey, what's up? Mom CEO. Hey, good morning, Watcher family. Rob, have a fantastic weekend at the lake. Happy Father's Day to everyone and every dad in this group. Shout out to the good fathers out there. We love our amazing fathers. Aunt Mom CEO, thank you for that. Shout out to your fam. Lil Kim Jong-un says some of the 82nd Airborne, the best damn division the world has ever seen, rehearsing for the parade tomorrow and trying out the free scooters in D.C. There you go. Yeah, I think that the parade tomorrow might have some rain, right? Some rain. That's a great photo. Riding around on the scooters. Awesome. Thank you, Lil Kim Jong-un, for this one. Can we get, oh yeah, I think this guy lost the NAD. Yeah, this guy lost the NAD. Anti-ICE rioter says ICE shot him in the nuts and now he's losing a ball. That's what your face would probably look like if you're losing a ball. Was it worth it, bro? Kilmar pleads not guilty. He had his hearing today and he pleads not guilty. Is that right? All right. It's good to know. Thank you, Milo Phone Bill. What's up? This one came in. Lil Kim Jong-un said this one. See that? Here's a meme. Israel waited till Friday the 13th to start World War III. Oh, kind of sick, says the meme. Chubby Stubby says, everything is right in the U.S. political sphere again. Here's a fun one. Elon is outside. Trump is in his Forrest Gump house. And Elon is playing I Miss You music to President Trump. Beautiful. Lil Kim Jong-un. Hey, look, I don't care if foreign nations attack other nations in the interest of their national security. We do it a lot. But the Middle East is like that toxic, thick, big booty goth Latina that's bat crap crazy and that your bro just can't quit. America is addicted to the toxic Middle East. Let them fight it out. Let them solve their own problems. Stop, America. You already have enough wars. But I don't have these wars. I want these too. You have your own border. Figure it out. But I'm more worried about Ukraine and Gaza's border. Chubby Stubby. Of course Breyer knew how he'd rule. I'm sure he and Newsom met beforehand to consolidate their notes. Wouldn't be surprised. Here's Gavin Newsom torching California. Oh yeah, this is fine. I'm going to be in control of the National Guard by 12 noon tomorrow. Lo Kim Jong-un says, hey, we did it, Patrick. We saved LA. The Mexicans. Yeah, they did. They saved America by destroying it to make it Mexico. Hey, what's up? Lo Kim Jong-un says, Gavin Newsom in that Star Wars scene says, pallets of bricks have arrived in LA. I mean, to Padme says, to rebuild homes destroyed by wildfires, right? The bricks? To rebuild the homes, right, Gavin? No, they don't want to rebuild anything. This is what they're into. Hey, visit California, where Mexicans will burn your Waymo on the way to get some pupusas. ELZ says Democrats started the first Civil War. Looks like they're trying to do it again. Current events are similar to the 1850s. You're right about that. You're right, ELZ. Chubby Stubby. Judge Breyer gets his rulings from reading tea leaves sent to him via email by Newsom and requires help from his clerks to wipe his own backside. Of course, there is no debate. See, Judge Breyer? I can do that too. Just make stuff up, but that's probably true. Knights of Knee. The rioters are too simply protesting what Biden is to successfully walking upstairs and Kamala is to completing a sentence. Yeah, I mean, I think the protests, I don't know if they're actually intent, like, I think if they can just reestablish control, like just push ICE out and reestablish, like if they stop the raids, they're going to declare that a victory and basically they're an autonomous zone state. Sam in Texas. This will prevent Trump deploying National Guard Sunday if this isn't stayed for appeal. He will have to invoke the Insurrection Act or martial law. From Sam in Texas. We'll see what the Court of Appeals does, but I think it stayed at least through the hearing, right? Yes, here at least through the hearing. The panel will hold a remote hearing. So the underlying order is stayed for the future. Now, thank you for that. What's up? Bullwinkle Sprinkles. The appeals panel of judges, 2 are Trump and 1 is Biden. Mark Shaw says, wait a minute, 83 years old and issued a 36-page ruling in 4 hours? No way. Doesn't pass the smell test unless he has a hell of an auto pen. From Mark Shaw. Yeah, or ChatGPT on auto pen. I meant Saturday, by the way. LOL King protests. From Sam in Texas. Good to see you, Sam. Tim S. There can be no debate, so there is no active controversy before the court. Case dismissed. Trump wins. Tim S. says, or did he mean he won't allow there to be a debate? Yeah, I think that's more like it. He won't allow there to be a debate. He doesn't want there to be a debate because the truth of the debate is that it is a rebellion. And he knows it. Dark Rogue. Hey, thank you, Dark Rogue, for the very nice one. Says, isn't the real story of the nation right now not the riots or the feud between Trump and Newsom, but rather the blurring of the lines of presidential power? Do the Dems realize they're creating precedents here for future presidents? Yeah, I mean, I think we're hopeful that ultimately the Supreme Court clarifies these things in a way that supports really the status quo, right? Trump is not doing anything unusual. He's exercising the law like other presidents have before, and they're weaponizing the judiciary in order to delay and deny him power. So, justice delayed is justice denied. So if they stall his deportations for a year, that's 25% of his efforts that they have stopped. If they stall him for 2 years, that's 50% of his time in office. So I think there's a lot of that. Now, even if the Supreme Court ultimately comes back down and says Trump has the ability to obviously deploy the National Guard, they're going to come back and settle that, this is still delaying, which is a form of denial. So I think that, yes, their attempt is clearly to blur the lines, and they're also trying to delay the execution. And they're trying to commingle, basically shoehorn all of the illegal immigration concepts into citizenship concepts. And they're trying to smuggle them in using due process to do that. And our Constitution and the First Amendment and all these things. There's this ethos in America that our Constitution protects people in America. And because that used to be Americans were in America, not 20 million to 30 million illegals. So they're trying, in other words, illegal aliens can only be deported if they're convicted of a crime. That was never the standard. The president always had Article 2 powers to, execute the INA and remove people. So they are blurring the lines. They're also delaying the enforcement. I think at the end game, some of the lines won't be blurry, but it's going to take 2 years to get the clarity And so at the end of the line, it's going to be pretty clear. Probably the same. I think Trump is going to win on a lot of these things because the government usually always wins. But right now, there's just a little bit of a battle happening. Ollie, thank you for the nice dono, Dark Rogue. Ollie, did they forget women and children being trafficked? They don't even care about that. Yeah, they don't care. As long as they're going to come and have babies and be more Democrats, they're cool. Ollie, hey, what's up, Ollie? Thanks for bringing in 5 membos. Kevin Grayson is here. Can do. What's up, Mike Sheridan, Shannon Wadley, and MAGA Babe, all in the house. I'd rather be skiing. 21 months as a membo. They serious when they bring a drum. Man, pounding on those drums drive you nuts. Thank you, I'd rather be skiing, for being here for 21 months. Ollie says, didn't Bush Jr. and his executive order amnesty? Please discuss. It's a good question. I don't think he ordered amnesty, but he was working hard on it. Remember, they had that like Gang of 8, and I think McCain was in on all that. They wanted comprehensive reform. Dark Rogue, when you don't have legitimate elections, you no longer have a, quote, democracy you claim to defend. No, not a democracy, not a republic. You have an oligarchy that has a fiction of elections and then basically brainwashes people while foreigners and an unelected class actually run things. We lived through 4 years of that. Thank you, Dark Rogue. Voice of the people. This DOJ better get serious and start charging the elected people with the word tree, last word son. This old guy says, these idiot governors keep referring to judicial warrants. All ICE needs is probable cause. Cops can arrest drunk drivers, for instance, without judicial warrants. This is just stupid. Uncle Bozy says, the correct word to describe Raskin's meltdown is kofefi. It's true. Put that on a coffee mug, too. NY Renal. These Article 3 courts have become the sort of plebeian tribune. Congress needs to act, as the instability is risking our country's future. Voice of the people says, this DOJ better get serious and start charging them. Milo phone bill. Is Gavin Newsom reading self-help books? Powers over others is weakness disguised as strength. The power is within and is available to you now. Eckhart Tolle. Speaking with that very soft and very curious accent. Alana Noble. So impressed with the FBI. Love the pushback from Alana Noble. Chubby says, amazing how these 2020 election contestations, these judges, meaning lefty activists, said we couldn't sue because there were no damages, yet so we had no standing. And then after the results, they declared them all moot or latches. Yet here we have a lefty activist judge doing the exact opposite. Isn't there already precedent that there's no standing after the 2020 farce? There's a lot of precedent, but the judges select and choose to reach the outcomes they want. Roger Needham, expletives are not crimes, from Roger Needham. Rick D, which many states already do get a real ID? LOL, 20 years ago in Tennessee, I have to provide a copy of my birth certificate to change from an Oregon to a Tennessee license. Uncle Bozy says, it's a Kofefi extravaganza with Raskin. We got Chat With Me says, Brian Etten on X says, I'm at the Kilmar Abrego hearing now. Prosecution is a cooperator who says Garcia was making $100K a year, smuggling guns and peoples, including minors, across the borders for years. $100K a year for an illegal alien. 6 figures. That's good, man. And free access. So they can take it. He can smuggle people in, 100 G's, and free reign when the FBI tries to stop him. Rub some dirt on it. Says, hey, can you confirm that the Sea Star is so portable that it can easily be carried along when traveling places over the weekend? Have a great weekend. Clear skies. Definitely very portable. And if I were to move it, it could come with us, but probably not going to happen. Thank you, Rub some dirt on it. Sharpie Guy, hey, happy Father's Day to all of them who raised us right, and fathers in the process of doing the same thing for his offspring. Generations to come will carry on these great men. Blessings, y'all, from Sharpie Guy. More here is bringing in Deja Vu, Tim S., Jack of Trades. What's up, Aaron S., LJC, Judy Luthi, Stigma of Rose. What's up, Lucas Brown? Crocheting Grandma's here. Don Emery's, Logan H., Merkin King, Derek, Cat Murray, Richard Poole, Kathy Henderson. What's up, Audacity? Tree Lyndon Rice. Just Me. We got Steven. Pamela Jean. What's up, Robert Brum? And Teresa R. Gifted membos, courtesy of Bruce Rice Baby. Thank you, Bruce, for bringing them in. Bruce Rice 20, more here, bringing in 5 more here. Thank you, Bruce Rice baby, for bringing in 20 new membos. 200 Watt Studio says Raskin basically says Brago's wife, RO, was QAnon. More here, bringing in 5 more membos. Greg O'Brien, 78 Mitsu, Jackie P, Joshua, and Scotsman. We got former LEO says second annual Los Angeles riots. The first one was in 1992, the triathlon, shoot, loot, and scoot. We got Dark Rogue says, if you think about it, taking power away from the president means the party rules over the president, just like in all communist countries. Yeah, it's like an oligarchy with just like a figurehead leader, but the party rules all. That's what Raskin wants, and they lecture us about the Constitution. Hey, Skip Distance Official says, longtime lurker here, watch daily and appreciate what you do, Rob. New album drop with the bonus, Watching the Watchers track. Watching the Watchers, Skip Distance on YouTube. Whoa! We got a new song? Watching the Watchers, Skip Distance on YouTube. Enjoy the weekend. I'll have to look that up. Thank you, Skip Distance Official. Sounds like you have a nice channel over there. My friends, check that one out. Skip Distance Official channel with a new track on YouTube. ELZ says, if buffering episodes was a commodity, we'd be rich. Heavy Johnny says, did I hear Rob is taking his C-Star on vacation? I can't wait to see the images. Yeah, they're going to be great. Can't wait to post them when we come back. Thank you, Heavy Johnny, for that. My friends, thank you for sending in all of those amazing donos. And welcome to our newest of new membos. We're going to do an after party right now for a few minutes, say our goodbyes, and round it out for the week. So if you're a membo, stick around, come hang out with us before we hit the road. But my friends, it has been a beautiful week and an amazing stream. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for subscribing if you haven't already done so. Thanks for sharing our channel with a friend or family member, inviting them to come back because we will be back here on Monday on the regular schedule. But today we'll leave it there. Before we round it out, I want to thank our amazing mods and meme smiths who helped mod the fort down for us, including Carrie B, K Bean, Donut Mind Me, our friends Geegum Geegum. We got Neuro D, Janek, Dog Digger on Rumble. We have John and Donut and Just Rhonda and many more friends who help make things all work out beautifully. What's going on? Geegum says, hey, happy Father's Day weekend to all you fathers out there. And Rob, time to put a ring on it yet, maybe? Here's a picture from Geegum. Happy Father's Day weekend. And that is our boy Greg. Papa Greg, Father Greg in the house. Happy Father's Day to Greg. Eating those meatballs. That's basically a real photo. That's how he looks sometimes, coming out of his ears, the spaghetti. They're good meatballs. Very good meatballs, and we appreciate Geegum for making that. Mama G's Meatballs. And ELZ says, $7 for luck. Good luck with your internet connection. Have a great weekend, Rob. Hope you're a father soon. Awesome stuff. So, my friends, it has been a beautiful stream. We're heading over to locals, YouTube members. Hang around with us for the after party. Otherwise, I hope you have a great weekend. And you unplug, you rest, you celebrate your father, if you got a good one out there, and you enjoy the weekend. I want to thank you once again for being here. Thanks for subscribing to the channel. Thanks for joining us when we go live. And thanks for being an amazing part of what we do here together. It's really an honor and a privilege, and I'm grateful. So I want to leave it there. I want to wish you the best weekend you can possibly imagine. We're coming back on Monday to get into it again. And until then, I hope you're well. But when we do come back on Monday, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful and incredible weekend, my friends. I'll see you right back here on Monday. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet. No, not just yet, because together we are watching the watchers, truth on our side. Watching the watchers, we won't be denied. Watching the watchers, eyes open wide, fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care.